Please welcome Michael Allegretti, Chief Strategy Officer at Rubicon, and Richard Hurowitz, CEO at Octavian. Richard?
Thank you. It's great, as always, to be at Concordia, and I want to congratulate Matt and Nick and George on pulling off. If anybody could pull off a virtual summit, it would be them. But congratulations on 10 years, and we're excited to be here. We're just, for those of you who don't know, we're media partners. The Octavian Report is a journal of ideas. This is our third year partnering with Octavian, and our new issue just came out with a former colleague of Michael's, Tony Blair. So please go take a look. But in any event, I'm really happy to be here with Michael to talk about cities, and which are all going through a very difficult time. But perhaps out of this, it's also an opportunity, and certainly COVID, as with other things, has accelerated a lot of opportunity. So Michael, so you're the Chief Strategy Officer for Rubicon. Can you maybe give us a little bit of an overview of what Rubicon exactly does, and also how you work with cities?
Absolutely, Richard. And I want to echo what you said and send my congratulations to Matt and Nick and the rest of the Concordia team on 10 years of putting on great summits. It's really a pleasure to be here. I remember being at the first one 10 years ago. So as to Rubicon, Rubicon is a software company. We were born in the waste and recycling space, and we deliver smart waste and recycling solutions for businesses and governments. And what that means is we have a suite of hardware and software products that we deploy across a fleet of independent waste haulers and across a fleet of government waste fleets to help enable smarter waste management practices, all oriented towards our mission, which is to end waste. So this is a software company in the waste management space that is focused specifically on keeping materials out of landfills and helping to ensure that fewer things get buried in the ground, more things get recycled, and that we really put the infrastructure and the practices in place to develop a circular economy. That's Rubicon in a nutshell.
So you I think you've talked about something that's, I mean, when people think of waste, on the one hand, they'll think of actually what goes into a landfill, but there's also an issue of broader waste in the system and government waste in general. How do you guys think about that in terms of the way, your products could help cities address all kinds of inefficiencies?
Well, that's exactly right, Richard. When the company was founded a little over 10 years ago, our focus was on physical waste. How do we keep stuff out of the ground and out of the oceans and out of our communities? And our business was built primarily with that focus, serving many of the world's top commercial customers, big box retailers, restaurants, et cetera. But over time, about 6 or 7 years into the company's life cycle, we said, and I should note, we're a B Corp, meaning that we're a social enterprise with a double bottom line mission, both, of course, to make money, but also to achieve a social or environmental good, thus the mission to end waste. And we said, if we just focus on commercial waste, we're only kind of dealing with half of the waste equation. What about waste at your home? And what about waste in a broader sense? How could we impact waste in all of its facets in a society? Wasted resources, wasted human capital, wasted energy, wasted time. So we developed a product called Rubicon Smart City that was purpose-built for city governments to help them not only keep stuff out of the land and create a greener, more sustainable society, but also to help claw back tax dollars, help to reduce overtime with public workers, help to ensure that everyone was pulling their fair share within a public workforce, and that every tax dollar was being spent in the best way possible. And what I think's come out of it and is important, for this summit, we have developed over 55 now public-private partnerships where Rubicon and a city government partner together, and we look for ways to save that government money, but at the same time, to talk to them about what could they do with those savings. Could they enhance their recycling programs? Could they invest in other aspects of their community so that overall the fabric of the community is enriched and becomes more resilient?
So I have to say the term smart city has been a real buzzword, and there's a lot of talk about it. I noticed that Concordia has named our session, they've used the term resilient city, which I guess is echoing the COVID challenges and the financial challenges and other issues cities around the country and around the world are facing. How do you think about that? I mean, what is sort of what is a resilient city, and how does this sort of smart city technology? How do you guys pitch it to them that it can help them?
Absolutely. And, I lead a business unit called Rubicon Smart City, but I'm on the record numerous times saying that I think most of the branding around the term smart city is largely marketing, and that it's hollow, and that it lacks a lot of depth. And what I mean by that is, in my experience working with cities since the C40 and various other times in my career, I saw many big companies kind of rushing into the zone to name existing products suddenly smart city products in a hope of capturing that public sector market share. But it wasn't clear to me that those products could deliver on what we believe is the true indicator of being a smart city. So, what is that for us? And we spent a lot of time thinking about a definition that was credible and could stand up to scrutiny. So for us, a smart city product and ultimately a smart city must be a proactive city, first and foremost. So that means moving beyond the days of being the best at responding to citizen complaints and instead becoming a city that proactively understands what the citizen is going to complain about or is going to need. So, real world example, rather than Mrs. Smith calling up City Hall and saying there's a pothole in front of my driveway. Imagine a world where City Hall texts, emails, or calls Mrs. Smith and says there's a pothole in front of your driveway. We're aware of it. We're going to remediate it maybe in the next 30 days or 2 weeks, whatever it is. That's a proactive approach. That's smart. Secondly, being paperless, which obviously is not all that revolutionary, but certainly in the public sector context is really important. Most of our city partners were running public works operations still off of paper. So believe it or not, that baseline thing is still really important. And finally, being data driven. And the driven is the key part. So lots of cities, lots of businesses have tons of data, but are they taking the data and then actioning steps essentially in real time off of that? Are they changing strategy with that data? So I think those three things together make for a smart city. And to your point, Richard, about smart cities and resilient cities, resilience also largely had been, I don't want to say a buzzword, but certainly a term linked to the climate challenge and the need for communities to adapt to the coming shocks and stresses of climate change. I think what we're seeing now is a convergence of these broader smart city initiatives that were long term and these infrastructure initiatives around resiliency, and they're coming together in real time, largely because of COVID and a need for cities to very quickly adapt to this public health emergency.
Like of the three real world examples that you gave, I mean, are you actually you seeing those implemented now? Like, are cities actually proactively saying, there's an issue in the street and notifying or is that something that is aspirational?
No, absolutely. I mean, that's the promise we make to cities is that by partnering with us, you will save money, you'll have better customer service, but ultimately you'll be able to build more resilient communities with a better quality of life. So our partners in the city of Santa Fe, for example, go out on a regular basis, and as their garbage trucks are going up and down the street, collecting the garbage, and our tech is collecting data about that core function, they are also using our technology to identify graffiti hotspots in the city. And anyone who's listening who's been to Santa Fe, it's a simply magical place. And we like to think we have a small role in that by helping that city stay ahead of graffiti, as an example. Our partners in Montgomery, Alabama, similarly used our technology to look for high weeds along the medians of highways, as well as for potholes. And each of our cities basically chooses what are the thing or things that are really important for their community that they can look for and therefore try to address.
And how has COVID affected your interaction or with cities, or the interest from cities that you may have been in dialogue before? I mean, are you seeing any change from it? Are they frozen? Are they more aggressive about working on these things?
Well, COVID, I mean, it's been a perfect storm for all of us, right? You and I are sitting in our living rooms or our offices right now during this virtual summit. So we've all had to adapt. But I would argue that nowhere has the adaptation been more severe than at the city government level, and particularly in the waste department, which is probably a place most of our listeners have never really thought about. But what happened to public works and sanitation departments across this country? Well, first and foremost, their workers are essential workers, right? As we've all been holed up in our homes for the past 6 months, we've been producing record numbers of residential waste and recycling. And the men and women who pick that up have still been coming every day and every week. So they had essential workers who had to continue their job against the backdrop of historic flows of the thing that they pick up, which is garbage. On top of that, they were crushed in many cases by COVID 19. Departments that had 20, 30, 40, 50% reductions in manpower, but at the same time had to deliver the same level of service. And then, of course, while that's all going on, right, and they had that reduction because of people contacting the virus or sharing it with someone else, over a 14-day period. And then the budget fell out from under them. As all our stores closed and our businesses went on pause, budgets became constrained. What have we experienced, though, at Rubicon has been somewhat counterintuitive, but really inspiring. Cities have been rushing to partner with us right now over the last 4 months in particular, more than ever before in our business's history. Cities are saying we need to make these investments right now in technology that enables us to run our operations remotely and that enable us to basically collect data so we could save tax dollars as quickly as possible, both right now and over a longer term horizon. So the smartest cities are the ones who are making those investments now with us and with other technology companies.
What's the biggest impediment you have to getting to a partnership with the city or convincing them to work with you? What is the sort of pushback that you guys experience?
I'm smiling because it's not our product, it's not our approach, it's not their willingness. It is the existing public procurement process. And there are some really, really innovative people right now with whom we have partnered to try to accelerate the pace of innovation with cities. We're a partner to Amazon Web Services, to a smaller outfit, but a really nimble one called Marketplace.city. And both of these entities have basically said the existing public procurement process does an outstanding job at safeguarding the public trust, but does a really poor job at allowing cities to experiment and innovate. And technology, I mean, you have an iPhone, I have an iPhone perhaps. We're getting updates to our iPhone every day, every week, every month. That's the pace of technological innovation. But governments are being saddled with technology through a contracting process that they might be stuck with for 5 or 10 years. And by the time you get through a procurement process, the technology can already be stale. So these partners and others with whom we're working are finding ways to help accelerate the ability for cities to test things out, of course, within the legal bounds of the procurement process, but in a way that kind of is a bit more common sense.
So, Michael, we have about a minute and a half left. I'm gonna ask you a last question, which is for everyone who's listening. What is it, since you're at the cutting edge of all of this in your space from a technological standpoint, that within the next 5 years is going to blow everyone away, that you think is going to happen or know about, but that is just going to be a massive innovation?
For me, within this government technology space, it's applying machine learning and AI to government functions. And for those of us who've worked in the public sector and care about cities and government in general, this is really exciting. So the very things that we see in the private sector, whether it's a good example is you take a picture of your check and it automatically deposits at your bank now through your phone. That's table stakes. Well, we're going to see that now embedded into the back office functions of cities. And that should lead to hundreds of millions of dollars of tax savings. Not that one example, but that sort of example spread over entire city bureaucracies. And so there is so much green space.
I was going to say, will we see a garbage truck going down the street automatically being able to pick out, like, if a sign is down or a tree is down and that kind of thing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I believe that that garbage truck will likely be an electric garbage truck. And I believe that it will be the eyes and ears of American cities. And that's what we're helping it do right now.
Great. Well, I think we're out of time. This is fascinating. We could go on for a long time. I would encourage everyone to go to your website. It's really fascinating what you guys are doing, and exciting, and wish you a lot of success. So thank you, and thank everyone. Thank you everyone for listening and tuning in.
Richard, thank you so much. It was great talking with you. Be well.